What's going on, guys? Velo here. Just wanted to run over a quick deck tech with you for the green-blue Infect deck that I'll be running. Now, I mean, this deck is excellent if you want to pick up a deck and get into Modern. This deck is genius for it. It's a pretty linear strategy. Just how quickly can you count to 10? Basically, get your opponent to 10 poison as quickly as you can, or as safely as you can. Now, just because it's a linear strategy doesn't mean that this deck doesn't interact with the opponent. It's not a glass cannon by any means. You do need to interact with your opponent, and play around, various things that could blow you out and sequence your spells, correctly. In order to be successful with it, but it's not too hard, and it has a very high ceiling on it. I think anyway. So just sort of running over the deck. First things first, I've ordered this terribly, but over here we have our Infect creatures. Now this is the bread and butter of the deck. So basically, your Blighted Agents, your Glistener Elves, Ichorclaw Myr, and Inkmoth Nexus, which is a land but obviously animates into an infecting creature. These are the guys that get the damage done 99 out of 100 games. They're what's going to make you win. Basically, in addition to those creatures there, we also have a couple of support creatures. So we've got Noble Hierarchs for a little bit of acceleration, and Exalted. Now the Exalted's really key in this deck because a lot of times you'll be able to get to 9 Infect really easily, and then that last damage from an Exalted trigger can put you over the line. Now the other two creatures I've sort of categorized here as support creatures are your Spellskites. These are to protect your main dudes. Make sure that if something dies, it's a Spellskite. I mean, Spellskite also naturally does very well against a lot of the decks in the modern metagame. Say Splinter Twin or Affinity, for example. So it doesn't hurt to have a couple main deck. Plus, most decks are running removal, so it's very rarely going to be a dead card for you. Now, moving over, I guess, to the pump spells just here. So these are what you're going to use to increase your damage as quickly as possible. You can obviously and often will use them defensively to keep your infect creatures alive. But basically, I'm running 4 Mutagenic Growth, which is the Phyrexian +2/+2. So pay 2 life, target creature gets +2/+2. I'm running 3 Groundswell, which is +4/+4 on a landfall trigger, instant cast, one green. 3 Might of Old Krosa. Might of Old Krosa is basically, if you cast it as a sorcery, it's +4/+4. If you cast it as an instant, it's +2/+2. And then finally, 3 Become Immense. So this is the Delve +6/+6 pump spell. Now, in addition to the pump spells, we've also got some defensive spells. So Apostle's Blessing will give you protection from a color or artifacts. Very, very useful. If you cast Apostle's Blessing in response to, say, a lightning bolt, giving your creature protection from red, you've essentially countered the lightning bolt. It can also be used to get through blockers. And because you can name protection from artifacts as well, it can get through Ornithopters in the way, or things like that out of Affinity. Now, in addition to the Apostle's Blessing, we also have 4 Vines of Vastwood. Basically, these are more or less very, very similar to Apostle's Blessing. So they give target creature hexproof in the same way that Apostle's Blessing can be used to counter spells. So can Vines of Vastwood, by giving something hexproof in response to a spell. It's no longer a legal target, and therefore can't be that spell won't resolve. In addition to the target creature gains hexproof, you can also kick it for 1 green to give that creature +4/+4. So Vines of the Vastwood sort of crosses the bridge between like a pump spell and a defensive spell. The last two cards over here are Wild Defiance. Now, this is an enchantment that gives any creature +3/+3, any creature you control +3/+3 when it's targeted by a spell, whether that's yours or your opponent's. So that blanks your opponent's lightning bolts and lightning helixes, and makes all of your pump spells so much stronger. It's a little bit slow, it's a little bit clunky, but it does a lot of work. Now, the only other 4 cards left in the main board aside from lands are these Gitaxian Probes. Basically, just your training wheels. You know, you get to see what's in your opponent's hand. They can trip. They cost 2 life. They're just useful. Why not? Why not? Now, over to the lands. I'm basically running 2 breeding pools. That's your blue-green Shockland, 3 forests, and a set of 8 fetch lands. Now, the fetch lands, I'm using Misty Rainforest and Verdant Catacombs, but you can use any. The only basics in the deck are forests, and the only Ravnica jewels are the breeding pools. So any fetch for green fetches are fine. There's 2 other lands in this deck that haven't been covered yet, and that's the Pendelhavens. Basically, Pendelhaven, you can activate it. It taps for a green. It's a legendary land. And it has an activated ability on it that gives target 1/1 creature +1/+2. So I mean, it's a little bit narrow, but in a similar way to the Noble Hierarch, it can be used to give you that last point of damage to sort of get you there. Now, it can also be used to sort of counter pyroclasms and things like that if you've got a opponent who hasn't been paying attention, but that won't come up anywhere near as often. Moving over to the sideboard, basically I'm running 2 Dispels and 2 Spell Pierce, just counter spells, a little bit of protection, trades 1 for 1 with burn cards. You know, Spell Pierces theoretically could be useful against Tron or something like that. Then for removal, the only removal we have room for is Dismembers, so running 3 of in the board, in case we need to kill some Tassigurs or something like that. As far as Artifact Hate goes, I'm running 2 Nature's Claim and 2 Creeping Corrosion. Nature's Claim's a little bit wider and can be a bit more useful than Creeping Corrosion. It's also easier to resolve, but Creeping Corrosion destroys all artifacts. If you resolve that against an affinity player, you almost always win. So I like splitting it that way anyway. Also running 3 Twisted Images. Now these are very, very important. An opponent's Spellskite basically ruins your day. Twisted Images are a way to stop your opponent ruining your day. It basically swaps the power and toughness of a target creature and draws a card. So if you target your opponent's Spellskite, the Spellskite just became a 4/0 and dies. It's fantastic. And it draws a card as well. It cycles itself. You can't get better than that. And the last card on the sideboard is just 1 additional copy of Wild Defiance in case you're up against a burn deck or a Jund deck or something you know is going to be basically throwing a lot of direct damage spells at your creatures. I can bring that in. That's the theory anyway. Now, as of recording